This is Innovation.Connected, coming to you from the World Economic Forum in Davos, a podcast by Tenity.
Welcome my esteemed guest, Dr. Huda, and also Andreas, both industry experts, and very looking forward to have this conversation with you guys. Maybe we do a quick introduction. Huda, where are you from? What did you do so far, and how did you end up in innovation?
Sure. Thank you so much for hosting me. So I'm a Saudi investor, a businesswoman, and a scientist at origin. So I did my PhD in IP commercialization. I worked both in the private sector, starting out my own companies since I was 19, investing in other companies and as an angel, and then later on deciding to help those companies that I see out there with creating an accelerator. I started out in the UK, then back in Saudi, running these accelerators, and then working with the government to operate entrepreneurship programs, as well as training and capacity building programs. I also worked in the corporate sector, back in corporate innovation globally, and also in Saudi Arabia.
Wow, very impressive. Andreas, what is your career?
Okay, so CEO of Tenity and also general partner of our fund. Started my career more, as a, studying computer science. I'm coming from the tech background, but then moved into more like entrepreneurship, worked also for bigger corporates, global scale corporates. Then, was running innovation at the Swiss Stock Exchange. And then, we started with that Tenity thing, almost 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Actually, 10 years ago, because it's the 10 years anniversary of Tenity. And now,
10th anniversary.
Okay. And now being kind of, I think a provider, ecosystem orchestrator of innovation for finance and insurance. We invest into startups, so we are an investor, VC. We take a lot of risks. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we work also with, a lot of very prominent big brand corporates, such as, banks and insurance companies, to help them to innovate. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of synergies between the two things, and we'll probably also talk about that today.
Yes.
Maybe you can already give your definition of innovation, because you say you work with big corporates, and then there are the startups, the tanker, and the small boats. So what is your definition of innovation? I'm curious to hear how you see that.
Okay. Yes. So I see it actually innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment as kind of connected chain. So when you have something new, like value add, let's say this is what we call it innovation, you are adding value to something that is existent, mm-hmm. and you want to bring it out. So then you create an applied version of it, an applied innovation where you can use it and utilize it. That's entrepreneurship for mm-hmm. us. And so you're taking the risk, you're launching a company around it, you're hiring a team, and you're having clients, and now this is an ecosystem you're building, and that's what attracts investment. So that's where investment comes in. A lot of entrepreneurs kind of put it the other way around. It's like, when there is investment, we'll start a company. But usually is when there's innovation, you start a company, and then you attract investment to it. That's how we see it.
Very, very good. I would totally agree on that. But Andreas, what's your take on that?
I have a totally different definition. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think super well. From my perspective, it resonates extremely well with me. I see it the same. Like innovation usually comes from some, like really basic research, right? Mm-hmm. Originates from, technical research institutes and so on. But I mean, that itself, doesn't solve any problem, because eventually, needs to be commercialized. It needs to be applied. It needs to, be tested on the market. And then also, some adoption needs to happen, because there were a lot of innovation, and a lot of patents actually, which didn't lead to anything because nobody was using it. So I think eventually it's all about, making, innovation in a way that you can create some positive impact, right? So that means like the industry gets more efficient, or, there's new possibilities. And I think we are now again, at one of these, very interesting, exciting times where we see like a new technology is now enabling new things, which creates a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs to start their companies. But also the big question mark is always, is the adoption really happening, right? And that's an interesting thing to talk about. And then also see like there's maybe, and I like to, use kind of this McKinsey framework of the 3 horizons, right? So you can innovate maybe in the 3 horizons, so you can also innovate at the core of a company, of doing, things better, which very often use also new technology to make that happen. But then it's not revolutionary, creating a new business model or completely changing or transforming a system. It's more like incremental, I would say. Then you have like the second horizon, which is more adjacent to what you do. So you create new opportunities, but they're not so far away from maybe your current business you're doing as a corporate or as a startup or as a scale up. And then obviously there's more the disruptive thing where people really think about completely changing the way how things are done today. So these are the three horizons, and I think you can innovate in all the three horizons.
Yeah, I think talking about corporate innovation as well. So we have actually, as a company, we started out in 2016 developing innovations as a third-party provider for other entities. So they'd have a problem, and then we would be trying to come up with solutions either internally or externally. So that means we either call the public to come and solve the problem through hackathons and boot camps and so on, or we work internally with the teams to identify possible solutions and get the buy-in from the internal organization. And so for us as well, sometimes these types of innovations are for survival, like we call them, it's a necessity, and we like them more when it comes to investment because they have a market. They're not innovating just for the sake of saying we have created something. It's because they need it. They're gonna use it once they make it. You see what I mean?
They solve a problem.
Exactly. Whereas we have other clients that also we work with as a third-party provider for innovation development, where we actually have to go through lots of IPs they have already developed, and they'd say to us, which one of these would be able to commercialize? And then that's a difficult task, because the first reason it developed was not to be actually applied innovation and go into entrepreneurship and recruit investment. It was just for the sake of creating something new. So those IPs are not so easy to utilize. It has to be from the beginning a solution to a real problem.
Yeah, that's a very common problem that a lot of companies are also failing.
Yeah.
What would you say, who is more innovating, the corporates or the startups? Who drives more innovation?
Oh.
I mean, I have a totally clear view on that. Very big opinion. I think big corporates, they can't innovate. It's impossible. No, because maybe you have different view, but I think it's impossible because they have other strengths, right? So, I think they have, get to a point where resilience of the company, where, stability, where also compliance and all these stuff are becoming very important. And, if you really want to, adopt new things and use technology, then it's usually a big challenge to do that in a, environment where the focus is really on that. Especially also when you see a little bit the time horizons of strategies, right? 3 years, like it's a very short term oriented thing when you're on the corporate side, while innovation is usually something which takes like 10 years, right? If you start a company and you want to scale up, there's some exceptions of high growth companies, but usually it takes like 7 to 10 years to create something really kind of substantial. So those type of things are super important, super difficult and challenging for corporates to deal with. That's why I think the startups, they don't have these kind of, constraints. They can act, they can be agile. But obviously, they also have a big challenge because, scaling, resources, regulations at one point in time is also a topic for them, especially if they're targeting, highly regulated industry, as we are more focusing on cost, like financing and so on. So I'm a big believer in creating the symbiosis between the startups and the corporates. I'm talking about that since 10 years. I mean, we started with Tenity 10 years ago with that hypothesis of combining startup innovation with the incumbents, helping them to innovate with startups, which I'm still 100% convinced it's the right way to do. But it's also not an easy play, right? Because there's a clash of mindset, a clash of culture, sometimes also some conflict of interests, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I could highlight a current trend that we have in Saudi at the moment, which is corporate venture builders. So the whole point of a big corporate being a little bit heavy to move and change and innovate and all of that, you can create subsidiaries or at the beginning incubate a few ideas under the umbrella of the corporate that can grow slowly, use the resources, and be a little bit free from the sort of systemized approach that the corporate is following. And then once they are big enough, then they can also spin out, and then they become their own subsidiary that serves the corporate interest with the flexibility of being a startup. But from day one, they already have resources, probably even utilize the corporate, what we call unfair advantage, which is access to the market, to the client, the workforce they have, the tools, the data. So for a startup to have everything facilitated, but then the entrepreneurial mindset of the founders, I think that's a great formula for success. But at the same time, like you were saying, the innovation at the corporate, the origin of it could be to solve a corporate problem. But sometimes the startups, when they create themselves out there, they're solving possibly a wider problem. So that's where it differs. What sort of problem you're solving?
Yeah, I think the corporate venture building thing, I mean, has also some challenges, right? So, and it also depends in which market you're active. I think if you're in a market where maybe there's not a very well developed startup ecosystem, maybe if there's not, like a vibrant, I would say, like investor landscape where you also can get the funding, I think that model can work very, very well. You need to find the entrepreneurs.
Yes.
The question is always a bit,
Yes.
are intrapreneurs or people, usually kind of, being hired by a corporate for doing a corporate job, then are these the right people then to lead, kind of one of these ventures, right? That's a bit the challenge. If you are able to identify the right people, then I think it can work out quite well. And obviously that's a super strategic thing, right? So you create your strategic venture to maybe solve a real problem you have in your space, but it's maybe, as you said before, not really solving a wider problem, which I think is probably more the turf of the independent startups. But everything has pros and cons, obviously. So we have seen that venture building thing also in Europe, where it was kind of, I would say, like on one side it was successful, but also see a lot of fails there, obviously.
Yeah, I'll let you ask because there's something I wanted to add on that, but you just keep going back and forth.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting because what you said before is something like that. People found a company because there's money. So technically, a corporate venture builder is the one who has the money, and that's the reason why they start their business. So that is also something where you may be related to. That can be a conflict, that there's something built because there's an idea in the boardroom.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I was saying.
We would like to have it, or you see it in a different country, and now we want to have that too, or see the trend in it. But
it's the survival. Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Like, for any person out there that they think they have a good idea to start, they should start that idea, even if they don't have capital yet. Because once they take that idea to market as an entrepreneur, then investors will follow. That's the typical model. But in the corporate venture builder, the corporate has already the market. They've identified this and they've made the investment, and they just need to actually create that innovation to go with it. In that context, it's slightly different because this is a de-risked innovation.
Yeah.
You don't have the risk of being an entrepreneur in the first place with it, because you're not after funding and you're not after testing the market and seeing if there's a fit and if it's going to work and then pivoting until you reach there.
Yeah.
You already know that your clients want it. You've probably created all the research to back it before you put that corporate fund to it. And now it's just kind of creating the solution to your customers and selling it. So it's a different type of innovation.
yes.
Yeah, I think it's super key. I mean, one of the, I would say, like success factors about that type of innovation is that you have done your homework before you start to put a lot of money on these kind of ideas, right? So it needs to be properly tested. And what I see, I think when I was working at corporate innovation, we also had this kind of, venture builder type of projects going on. And what I've learned a bit, that kind of the real kind of validation of the problem statement on the market and the interviews you usually do with the customers, etc. That's very often just a little bit kind of, shortcutted, right? Because people are, they think like we have pressure, we now need to deliver something, and then what you do is actually you skip kind of the very important phase of the validation, and then you start like, because you have the resources and the capital, you usually put a lot of money up front onto these kind of projects or ventures, which is kind of the opposite what's happening with the startups, because you give them as an investor only as little money as they really need to get to the next milestone, right? It's a risk, and you do risk as an investor, you do risk your venture of not providing too much upfront capital because they are getting crazy and then hire like hundreds of people, which they probably don't really need at that stage. So that's one thing I see a little bit, in the corporate context, that this is so-called a premature scaling happening, and then later on they realize that maybe the market is not really so much in need of that what you need, and then you have spent like millions on it, which is a startup would have died already before, right?
Yes.
And that's I think also one of the pros and cons as you see a bit with these models. So you see, like, I'm personally a little bit a fan of maybe working more like in the open innovation model with startups. But I think if you have once identified a strategic like problem for your institution, and you're more or less 100% convinced that there's a market for it, then obviously you can go all in and make it successful, and then you're probably much faster and you can de-risk it, but you have to do the the job before, right?
Maybe let me share a solution that we came up with to solve such a problem. So when you have to choose between being a startup in the open innovation market, and like we said, you're testing everything yourself, and if it doesn't work, you'll shut it down. If it works, you're probably going to be able to scale up organically. But then the corporate one, where you almost have an initial investment that doesn't allow you to drop it off easily because you've already put the investment in. So you're going to go for longer and longer because you've already costed yourself something at the start. So the solution that I actually proposed once to one of the corporates that I was involved with, and I think that would be the solution that could be expanded more and more, is to catch startups from the market that are really doing well and acquire them partially without being influenced, or without actually changing the sort of the workflow that they have. Because at that point, you're acquiring innovations that you need. You have identified as a corporate what do you need, and then you went out and found what fulfills that need. And then you let it do what it does without constraining it with your corporate structure. So you take that advantage, and they take the advantage that you have. But given that you don't then enforce any sort of constraints on them, then that would work. If you start putting the constraints on them, then you're quickly getting them into the corporate world, and then they're no longer able to innovate freely.
I'm impressed.
That's perfect.
I mean, how do you see that, Andreas?
I see it exactly the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we shaped actually.
Perfect, we're in agreement.
I mean, we shaped a product and the structure around that as Tenity. So maybe to explain that a little bit also for the audience of the podcast. So we have created a fund which invests into seed stage companies, mainly indexing innovation in Europe and Southeast Asia. And that fund per se, does a lot of investment. So we did already 110 meanwhile. That creates kind of a lot of opportunities. And who is investing into that fund? It's not a typical, I would say, like financial ROI-driven kind of LP. It's kind of, our corporate partners, it's the, banks and insurance companies.
Correct.
And why do they invest into this fund? Because they get a pipeline of opportunities. And maybe seed stage is far too early for them to, already know that this is a strategic kind of fit for them. But once you are, an LP into that fund, and you see these hundreds of companies, and we have all the data, we see the traction and so on, right? Then you can actually decide at one point in time you want to, get more closer to these companies, and then maybe start to do a minority investments, and then from then on you can even go to like strategic investments. So that's a bit the way how we have structured it.
I like that. That's for the sourcing part,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not only the sourcing part, because we, for instance, have with all these companies kind of a co-investment right, so we can guarantee that if one of our LPs then want to invest into the companies, that they can, because very often when a startup has a lot of traction, then those investments become competitive, and then it's also sometimes a bit challenging, especially for corporate investors, to get into the deals, because then it's more becoming kind of these private backdoor VC deals, which we can we can somehow solve the problem, because we invested early, so we have the right to co-invest, so we can let our LPs co-invest, so they have the strategic access to these deals. And I mean, also, to be honest, right, so there's some, portfolio companies which might, go their more independence path, because also they become a bit challengers of the, incumbents, but many of them, right, in the B2B space, they are also looking at over time for more these strategic partnerships.
We talked in general about innovation, but how is innovation happening at the moment in Saudi? And also, what kind of role do women play in that part?
Amazing. So we have a huge interest in capacity building for innovation, and that links to corporate innovation, it links to government innovation, private innovation, wherever you want to cultivate culture of innovation in general. It means you need to train people. You need to start on the sort of workforce development and the youth, the students, the early stage, early professionals or career professionals, or even senior ones. So what we have, actually, this is something completely like an NGO type thing. We have support from one of the government funds to train people who are working currently in any type of job to actually become innovation professionals. So we have that as part of the Global Innovation Institute, which is a huge organization. Mm-hmm. So I represent them as an ambassador in Saudi. And then what happens then is I obviously try to promote the innovation, but now it is something better than that. It is literally professional qualifications that people can take at the starting level, strategic level, so certified innovation strategist, or certified innovation chief, so CIO. Mm-hmm. So that's really good, because that means that people who are interested in innovation will actually be able to have an entry point to it, no matter where they are in their job. They could be working in HR, they could be working in finance, they could be working in operations, they could be in academic career. Wherever they are, they're going to be learning the innovation framework. So they're innovating in these sort of standards, the global standards, the best practice of innovation. And then they're going to be able to develop as well. So they're going to write innovation strategies, apply those, then manage portfolios of innovation as chief innovation officers. So that's really what we talk about, structured capacity building, because for a very long time, us in training and development sort of industry, even starting out in the UK from 2016, we trained a lot. We trained a lot of people in technology innovation, in biotechnology innovation, different topics, different verticals. But at the end of the day, we noticed that there is a fundamental sort of base that everybody can just agree on, that's how we approach a problem, design thinking, that's how we layer multiple solutions and all of that on it. So now this is what we do in Saudi. We actually allow anybody who is currently working to go and learn innovation, fully covered by government scheme, and then advance their career in that.
It's quite impressive. What is the ratio with women? Is it accessible
yes.
to everybody? What is the ratio? I mean, sorry for this random question, but I think there's a couple of perceptions we have about Saudi women, about the innovation there, because our audience is global, and I think it would be great if you highlight also how that happens there, and what is the ratio there?
Yes, of course. So I think there are a lot of global audience that came to Saudi and told me this. I'm quoting what I heard, that they were very, very impressed to see how many women they are represented in senior level management. Okay, so they were saying that globally we have in Saudi a higher participation rate for women in workplace, but at also leadership level in senior management. And that's a huge thing. Multiple countries and people who are specialized in sort of reporting statistics and sort of following this theme, when they came and they looked at the numbers and they saw it with their own eyes, they were really surprised, because they're like, whenever I go to any senior level meeting, I do have a senior person, female, in that meeting, which is, I personally sometimes go to a lot of meetings on global scale, and the room is just full of men. I'm the only woman from Saudi, you know what I mean? So it is really good to see this, and it makes us very, very proud. And, you have a lot of empowerment to speak your mind, to influence, to create change, and to lead.
Yes. I mean, I can agree on that. I mean, I saw that I was a couple of times in Saudi over the last years, and I exactly saw the same thing, and I think it's very impressive. I mean, Andreas, you went to Saudi as well. Was it the first time this year?
Yes, first time this year.
And how was it?
I mean, we have a lot of biases, you know. I mean, me being Swiss, super biased, right? Living in, I would say, like from my perspective, in one of the kind of best countries you can live in terms of quality of life and everything of that. I mean, we are meanwhile, as Tenity, a global organization. We have like people from everywhere, 15 nationalities. I'm also super proud to have like a 50-50 gender split, you know, in the company. So even 2 of our partners are, you know, women, which is great. For me, it's kind of, you know, it doesn't matter that anymore. So for me, it's kind of normal. But I think we have a lot of biases, you know, in Europe about this topic, about the Middle East, about, you know, Saudi, GCC, and so on. So for me, it was kind of, you know, very, you know, interesting to go there because I want to see it, right? So I hear a lot also from Max, you know, who is more traveling the region there. And I was kind of, you know, astonished that, you know, almost all the meetings we had, right, were with women.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, for me, it was like, yes, okay, so I have to give up, you know, all these kind of outside perceptions. You know, we are influenced by probably a lot of things here, right? And also talk to, you know, a lot of friends who used to travel to the region, you know, some time ago, like 10 years ago or so. I think things changed, obviously, and they changed fast. So this is a bit, you know, my perception. Everything goes extremely fast, right? So,
well, to be honest, there is something really cool that I'm sure that's been picked up already. That the Saudi population in general loves education. You know, so that you can obviously see that because there has been a time when there are a lot of students at global universities that are coming from Saudi Arabia at you know, university, higher education level as well. And so you can imagine with highly educated population, both male and female, and very big mission to accomplish. We have obviously Vision 2030.
Yes.
We have a lot of high KPIs, big milestones we want to reach, competitive landscape even on the global level. So for us to have an accelerated work environment where we actually want to create all of that impact and we're empowered to do so, then you get what you're seeing. You get all of that fast movement, sort of, you know, everybody is really self-motivated, you know. Everybody wants to deliver their best. Everybody wants to learn, apply their knowledge, and do more and give more to the world. And so that's the spirit there for both male and female and the unity between the two. We actually don't have distinction. That's the beautiful part.
I mean, it's totally true. I mean, I come first time in contact 2013 when I studied at INSEAD, and I had a couple of Saudi colleagues there. And now also actively in the alumni organization in Saudi. There's, as you said it, there's no differentiation. And also what I found interesting, that there's a switch from government to private sector to government. So this is like, it's like a rolling thing that people not got stuck once in government, which I see more in Europe, so that there is a and also they help each other. At least that was my impression.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, you see a lot of PPP, like, you know, public-private partnerships, because people can understand each other's language, like you were saying. The mindset of a worker who's been in government and has also been in the private sector can actually combine the two synergies, and then that can be applied at a national level, because I repeat again, everybody is motivated for that national vision of 2030, and they're creating that big change and that big impact in the world. And so for them, it's about bringing it all together. Yeah. All genders, all ages, all nationalities, and all backgrounds to actually create this mission and make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's really necessary to encourage more people to travel, to come to Saudi and also exchange with the culture, because the perceptions are probably really different. But it's also glad that you have a big role here in Davos. I think Saudi has 3 houses.
Yeah.
As
one of them has tourism, by the way. You could go and see the different typology. I didn't know we have snow, like, you know, like you guys here in some parts of Saudi.
That, yes.
You know, and some other parts are completely hot and summery, and you know, you have that in the same year. You can go here or there, and, like, you know, try different things. It's a huge country.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
also
nice.
have roses production. It's also a lot of people.
Oh, the
don't-
agriculture.
Yes, which people don't know. So it's really a broad country.
It's not just a desert. That's the main point here. It's not just a desert.
It's true, but the
It's-
perception is
yeah.
probably different from the audience. Wow. So maybe going more quickly to the Vision 2030. So you have a lot of things you need to do still. So there's a couple of, let's say, clear definitions where you would encourage or increase development in a country. And then you talked about corporate acceleration or corporate venture building and normal accelerator. So what do you think is really needed to fulfill that? Because you can't, yes, build everything yourself. So is it to integrate foreigners? Is it then to bring foreign companies over? Or what do you think is a good mix for overachieving the goals?
Amazing. Okay. So there is another model that is fantastic actually for the globalization of technology and let's say how we in Saudi are attracting top talents and top startups, entrepreneurs to have their regional headquarters in Riyadh or in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in general. Obviously, Riyadh being the capital city, there are a lot of opportunities there. That means for them, they're able to see what adapts to the MENA region market in general and be able to access it as a hub all from Saudi Arabia, and at the same time benefit from what I was saying, the great workforce that is there, highly educated young population that also can be creating more jobs in the ecosystem. So for us, when we look at it, if we see a great entrepreneur that has a solution to a problem that is related to the region, or a problem, of course, at a global scale, but they want it to come out from the region as a solution, we really get very excited, because that means them being there, they're creating jobs, they're transferring knowledge and technology there, and they are bringing also direct foreign investment at the same time, because of course there are investments that they can take from the region, but also there are global investments that can see the market, the lucrative market in the region, that means for any investor ROI. Do you see what I mean? And that's how I always look at it. Whenever I speak to our co-investors all over the world and say to them, like, we have a company from UK coming to Saudi, and I say to them, what do you think of this investment opportunity? They immediately imagine, like, you guys should invest. You know what I mean? Like, if they are in the region, you should make the investment. But because we work at a global stage, it's not just locally as a private. I always say to them, no, but you're missing out on this opportunity, because these guys are doubling their numbers. You know what I mean? Their valuation is getting higher. They're having higher sales. They are distributing their technology to the world. We have an amazing integration, honestly, between the private sector and the public sector in Saudi. The government and the private sector are working very, very well on making things happen faster than anywhere else. I could 100% be confident about that, because I've seen it all. The thing is, if you are a startup and you think there are some regulatory barriers, that we have sandboxes, we have roundtables where the regulators sit together with innovators and they understand where they could allow this innovation to grow bigger and actually develop and evolve more policies that push this innovation further. That's great. That you cannot do anywhere else. If you have sometimes an innovation and you are in a certain jurisdiction, it might be like, oh, you cannot do that. It's the end of it. You know what I mean? Whereas in Saudi, there's a whole evolution of pushing innovation forward. So even for a global company, they could probably do more being in this in Saudi, in this jurisdiction, to innovate more from that point of view. Then to have access to foreign capital that see the opportunity as well as local capital, and then the opportunity itself for sales and for market expansion and all of that, and then the workforce. So where do you find all of that in one ecosystem?
Yeah.
This is why Saudi is fantastic for attracting foreign companies to come in,
Yeah,
especially SME stage and startups. I mean, corporates, they already know. A lot of corporates have their headquarters in Saudi. They're already seeing this. The region headquarters is based in Riyadh and so on. We hear a lot over the news of big companies making this move because they're seeing the opportunity. It's very easy for them. They have a lot of research, they've done. But I talk about small companies and SMEs and startups. Sometimes they don't see this big picture, and so they miss out on such opportunities.
Yes. Yeah, I mean it's true. I mean, fintech Saudi is, for instance, initiated from CMA and the central bank, which is also very unusual in other jurisdictions, that you have the two regulators who found an organization which takes care of these sandbox topics, or also try to accelerate companies to have a, let's say, a better understanding about regulation, which also gives them a better view on where the market is going.
Yes, and one big thing I'm personally interested in, obviously being a scientist, is the biotechnology sector. So seeing more companies, global companies from biotechnology industry coming to Saudi and setting up there, because there's a huge expansion in terms of research facility, clinical trials, if you're talking about healthcare applications, agriculture. We talked about that and what's available in the country for that. And as you know, biotechnology has different colors, right? There is the red, which is the healthcare, and the green for the agri-tech, but there's the white for industrial, and the brown for desert. And, it's a whole spectrum of rainbow colors for biotechnology. What it means, even like renewable energy or biodegradable clothing, or like material, this is all biotechnology. It's not just like diagnosis, treatment, and prevention that is to do with human health.
Yes.
So for that as well, we want to kind of open the sort of like the perspective wider for everybody else who is interested in this big thing in the world, this big movement of biotechnology, but also considering Saudi as the home for that.
Yeah, I think at Kaxt you have these labs.
Literally universities all over the kingdom.
Yes.
They, like I mentioned to you before, because of this highly educated population, they're all coming back with their PhDs, masters, doing research, collaborating with global institutes, creating IPs in Saudi, commercializing them or taking them abroad, exporting the products that they create. So you have this big movement that is already with a Saudi population. Then you have, as I mentioned, the global entrepreneurs that want to come in and do this. And we see a lot of even JVs. We see an entrepreneur from Brazil, for example, who's found a solution. Another one from Saudi who's found another piece of the puzzle, like to solve the same problem. And they create a JV together. And that JV is unique by itself because it's accessing the entire of the world from just two minds coming together.
Wow, yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So Andreas, when will you go there next?
We already have a license from ESA. So
Nice. So congratulations. Oh, these guys are very fast as well.
I think
Yes.
it resonates very well what you said before in terms of like the also the communication, what like your country does in terms of attracting people to go there, and corporates and companies there. I think the perception from many founders from Europe, and I did a lot of talks with them, how they see the region and so on, is still a bit, like they see more the region as a region where you can go for fundraising, because they believe like there's just a lot of money around.
Part.
And
That's
I
why
think I
want to
always
say
tell
there's
them,
more.
look, this is not going to work, right?
Yes.
So maybe this was a bit in the past when, like these countries mainly invested abroad. But now I think if you want to go there, you need to see the market opportunities.
Yes, agreed.
And like the market, seeing the market opportunities means also you need to travel, right? And you need to go and you need to talk to people, because it's just not enough if you're doing a great job on communicating the things with all the initiatives, the Saudi 2030, you can download it, etc. But once you really want to understand what's going on, right, you need to travel, you need to go, you need to meet people on the ground. And then obviously you need to also shape your strategy of how you want to enter the market, because it's also not so easy. And I'm a big fan of this combination of if you enter the market maybe as a foreign company from a Saudi perspective, right, that you also bring along some investors who invest in you, and that they also see kind of the market opportunity there, because it's scale. It's a 30 million, 35 million, population market, average age very kind of young, right? So there's a lot of room for digital solutions and that type of things for, it's fast moving. So I think it's a perfect opportunity, but a lot of people don't see it yet, right? And also they see the opportunity cost, because, there's language and, cultural things they need to bridge, but I think that's just solvable, right?
Totally.
And,
yes, and I think that works with when you're talking about traveling. I love really what you said there. just by you traveling there and seeing how helpful everybody is, and the fact that lots of people speak English, by the way, it's maybe a fact that nobody is fully aware.
Yes.
But again, as a Saudi, sometimes when I go to travel all over the place, I expect everyone around me to speak English because that's what I have in Riyadh, and it's so easy. But then I find no, we speak more English in Riyadh. At the same time, of course, Arabic culture, Arabic language, Arabic heritage is a big thing, is a big pride for us. So you don't miss that as well. So when you travel to Saudi, you are in Saudi. You feel the hospitality, you feel the culture, you get enriched by the experience. At the same time, it is easygoing. I go in, they're very educated. They can speak to you in English. They can speak to you. They can also teach you some Arabic as well. Like the people come back always having some few Arabic words because the population is so friendly, and they, anywhere you go, you can speak to somebody and they'll teach you something. But at the same time, having local partners is also one of the top secrets. Really, really top secrets. It means that you want to have somebody who is on the same wavelength as you. You're an entrepreneur. There's so many entrepreneurs. There's so many entrepreneurial communities as well in the kingdom that you can connect with. And even via LinkedIn, if or through conferences, that when you come for a 2-3 day conference, you'll find a lot of people from the region that are similar mindset, and you can partner up, because it's always better anyway. We know that for business to have partners. So when you have a local partner, then you're navigating it faster, you're navigating it easier. That's just a tip, but it's not a necessity, you know what I mean? But it's just a tip that sometimes makes it faster. But MISA guys, Minister of Investment, are fantastic, because honestly, they are the best. I have to tell you this, because they make everything so easy. They have, as a first point of contact, they make everything so easy. They create, like you were mentioning, the roadmap for integration. You, of course, have the license, so that makes it quite easy. And then they have, people working closely with you, introductions to the ecosystem itself, workshops. There's so many things that you get just for being interested. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's why I say it's fantastic, because I personally, again, as an entrepreneur, and I was just talking as an entrepreneur, who worked in or had companies in different countries, in fact, even since I was young, I sometimes find it all on me to figure it all out. You know what I mean? I don't know where to go to find out how do I set up a new business in a new country, because I have no clue. Of course, I mean, I've not, I don't know how it works in another place. So I have nobody to guide me. But MISA guys, they're very good at doing that. You'll find them, in any conference, they just explain to you how it works, how you can come in. And that's, I think, is huge.
Yeah, true. No, I can confirm that I already helped also other companies to come over, and they definitely agreed on that. Maybe the last thing, the conference you said. So we would you recommend? We thought about doing such a podcast series at Leap very soon, to also give more direct, let's say, insights from that what is happening there, because the perception is really a big thing, as also Andy mentioned.
Yes, I'm a speaker actually at Leap, so I can get you all the funnel. No, but seriously, that, I think it's great to keep educating the world about the opportunities that are happening in Saudi, the culture, the perception, and the like you were mentioning, the energy and the vibe that people are not picking up on, which is, how empowered everybody else is in the kingdom. So I think for you to be able to also host something from inside out, that would be great.
Yes. Yeah, cool. No, it's almost...
It's on the list.
It's on the list, let's say it that way. So, So thank you very much, both of you, for giving us that insights about innovation, and also how the gap is, or not gap, how the correlation is between startups and corporates, and also what kind of solutions could be made.